All right, hi everybody. We are live. I am Coach Dennis Stoica with Modern Air Warriors. Welcome back for another amazing podcast. Right, we're always bringing on like-minded people. Have another amazing guest today. We're always trying to bring people on, which are what our coaches, different type of coaching fields, um, martial arts, self-defense, fitness, defensive tactics, all kinds of awesome stuff that is that warrior type training. But hey, today, our special guest is Kevin Dillon, and he is a founder of Lockup Police Combat Systems. And I am excited. I know personally someone who has taken lots of his courses, loves them to death, loves the program. Happens to be a police trainer over in Europe. That's a very good friend of mine. But hey, I'm going to kick it over to Kevin. Kevin, please introduce yourself. Retired lieutenant, years in the job, and go ahead.
Well, first of all, hello everybody. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate that. It's a wonderful opportunity. My wife says to me the other day, "Do you really like traveling state to state every week?" I said, "No, honey, I can't stand it." I said, "But unfortunately, I'm a kind of a round peg in a round hole." See, I started my martial art career when a pudgy little 14-year-old. Not much has changed, obviously, since that time. But I was training with traditional martial arts, and then I started to train with a guy named Carl Thomas, who was a Green Beret Vietnam vet, hardcore stallion to this day. And I noticed him training me was completely different than the martial arts stuff I was getting done. So then I started to train with him every week. And he was a police officer. So I started to ride with him like all the time. In high school, I knew all I wanted to do was wear that uniform. So I graduated in 19, never mind. But within a year, I was on the job. And however, in Connecticut, you could be a police officer when you're 18 or 19, but you couldn't buy bullets till you're 21. So I had to go to the store with mom. What do you want, baby? You want the plus P hollow points? Give my baby those plus P hollow points. True story. My mom had to buy my bullets. So what I did have, guys, well, and later on, I look at the file. I shouldn't be saying this. The shrink says, don't hire this guy. See, I did get into a lot of physical altercations. And I was doing a lot of competitions. And unfortunately, like the physical confrontations, there was a lot of them. So finally, I'm like, what's going on? I found out is buddies of mine, they would start the problems just to see me go to work. And I start to realize, I'm like, wait a minute, we are in these encounters. So I'm like, I cut bait with those guys fast. So I was very fortunate enough. I had great peer-to-peer accountability, great supervisory oversight. And I served a patrol for 9 years, and I then made detective for 5 years, and sergeant for 5 years, and lieutenant for 5 years, and very big into SWAT. We had a regional team, 35 operators, 18 negotiators, and got a lot of work that way. I led the stack for about 10 years. Then I think they thought I was too fat and slow and put me in the bus as a commander. And I did that for a couple of years. In 2000, I wrote a program called Lockup because, we're trying to put in the state of Connecticut, put together a defensive tactics arrest control program. And of course, anybody who knows about it, if you meet with 15 different SMEs, you're going to leave with 15 different examples or opinions. So I almost walked out. I did walk out. I said, "No, I'm all set, guys. I'm cutting bait." I'm like, "Where you going?" I said, "Guys, I don't have time. I don't really give a this guy wants to teach A, B, and C. And I don't give a it's not about us. It's about the officer. They are not going to train once a week. You're going to get them maybe once a year after basic training." I said, so it's all about them. What is the time allotment that you have? What is the skill set? What is the objectives? So it was called Lockup for law officers, combat kinetics. The physical manipulations, make no mistake about it, they will be analyzed. What's the rate of descent? What is the anatomy of that particular takedown? What is the quantum of force? What's the reasonable foreseeable outcome? What's the retainability? These guys don't take any of this stuff in consideration. So it's in the combat kinetics, you just can't teach anything to these guys and gals because you're going to be scrutinized. Real quick, Lieutenant, our sensei, I said, "You're what?" Our sensei teaches this. So if you have a guy, boom, he goes down underneath. All right. So he's fusing his hands. Yeah. And no weapons, no nothing. Elbows down. Yeah. Okay. So he's got no weapons. He's just doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. Our sensei tells, mount his back, reach over, grab his head, pull his head up, and then the arms will come out. I say, you do know that's a neck break, right? No, it's not. Yes, it is. Necks don't break this way. They break this way. So you are compressing the upper back and pulling his head. What if he
Yeah.
relaxes at the last second? Snap.
And
I said,
in today's world now, right?
yes.
So lots of departments for a long time. FBI was one of the very last, actually, towards the very end of my career, like about a year or 2 years towards the very end, like in my year 23, we finally eliminated choking,
Yeah.
right? And dealing with the neck. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Right.
I don't agree with it, actually, right? Because
Yeah.
I do believe if you actually train it,
Mm-hmm.
people can use neck restraints.
Yeah.
You just need trained people. So, Kevin, awesome. I'm gonna just jump in here a little bit. I like to ask people their why. Their why is purpose, passion, and principles. And I can tell already, and our listeners can already tell, amazing passion, right? What you bring, like how you talk, you love what you do, you love the job. Even before we talked, there was some like, God, like the career and people coming on today, and like, I almost want to tell them not to, but then I can't because the job is awesome and we need each other, right? So
Yeah.
there's passion behind that. But um, purpose. What's the purpose of the lockup police combat system? Why did you develop it?
Well, I never had the vision to create my own system. It was almost just fell into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I had great mentors. One was a guy named George Miller from Connecticut Police Academy. And George had a vision. In matter of fact, George came up. I said, George, I need a name. This is a different type of program. It's not a generic defensive. It's one. So that's where he came up with the Law Officers Combat Kinetics for Unarmed Panoply. Panoply, the complete shining array of skills required by the modern day officer. So it came to that, it fell into place. But I'll tell you the reason why, which is really because I came on as a baby cop. I was at the FBI Academy in Quantico in almost 24 years on the job. So at 25 years,
the National Academy as a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So great program, but at the time I'm like, I could the union guy kept hold on a little bit more because always retire the same time the union president retires because it's going to be probably the best benefit you're going to get. So at the time, I'm like, all right, do I want to pop smoke here and go on to another police department like we talked about? Mm-hmm. Or do I want to take the training show on the road? Well, one day it's a forensic science class and we're watching it and it's like 120 of us in the room and they're going after slide after slide. But this particular day, his name was Trooper Nicky Green, Oklahoma State Trooper. I never forgot it. Now, what happened was, here's the story. Oh, hello, paper boy, Trooper Green. There's somebody broken down in the street there. You might want to go help him out. Okay, paper boy, I'll help him out. Puts his uniform on, kisses baby 1, kisses baby 2, kisses baby 3. Daddy's got to be right back. I got to go help somebody. He never comes back. The video shows the fight for a second or two, and they go right up the screen. And that's what you hear. Give me you got, no, please, I'm children. No, give me a pop, pop. And then you see this piece of walking across the screen, and he's wearing a handcuff. That told me everything I ever noted. And I'm like, his brain, the officer's brain, is defaulting to trying to put a steel bracelet. This guy is going to work on him. It's a physically impossible task. That's when I immersed myself into understanding the physiological response, the autonomic response, almost like the neural imprints. This guy, again, it's not his fault. The brain process. So right then and there, I'm like, he died because we are failing them. We're failing them still to this day. So I graduated the FBI Academy. Within 6 months, I retired, and I've been on the road ever since. And that was almost awesome. 20 years ago.
That is awesome. Hey, and part of my question is going to resolve around, what your system deals with and what I believe else might be out there that people are being fed, which is good and bad. But I'm also going to talk about what's not being taught out there too, as we're going to get to too. So, lockup is not just BJJ. So, and this is where I'll go, right? So there's Gracies are out there. I had a doctor a couple podcasts ago that did a doctoral thesis on the Gracie Combatives program. It's awesome. Cool. I'm not going to knock it, but it's a piece. And in today's world, with wearing all the kits that we wear, right? Back in the day when you and I came on the job, everything was on your belt. We didn't wear an outer vest. It was underneath your shirt. Mm-hmm. We actually went to an outer vest, but it didn't have mollies. It looked like we actually gave a shirt to the seamstress. The seamstress made a carrier so we looked like we were in a dress shirt still. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So everything was still on our belt. But now we have, not just do we wear the stuff on the outside, but we have more stuff on the outside. You have your camera, which we never had before. You have a cell phone, which I never had before, right? We have a tourniquet, which we never had before, right? We have a taser, maybe if you want to carry one or not, that we didn't have before. So we have all this stuff, and maybe a rifle mag even on us now, because we see violent situations. Like if you don't have it, you don't have it, right? So I keep an extra rifle mag on me, right? So we just got all this stuff, and it just doesn't. Jiu-jitsu is maybe not the right answer. Is my point. Great programs, great to have part of the curriculum, perhaps, but it's not the whole thing. I'd like your thoughts on that, and then like expand a little bit, like what police lockup is, right? Police combat systems. What? I mean, because I know a little bit. You have multiple different courses. We can go over the courses too as like a next question.
Well, you always hear things. Well, no one system has it everything. Say, well, one system has everything in a 5-day class.
Yep.
Period. But you cannot put all this stuff. You're talking about, all right, now handcuffing training, okay, baton training, okay, OC training, okay, taser training, okay, arrest control training, countermeasures, self-defense. I mean, officer survival. See, we don't take the data and look at it and develop curriculum. We develop curriculum what we think should be taught. Yeah. And you're 100% correct. Like we've had jiu-jitsu is nothing new. We've had it in lockup for 25 years.
Yep.
Lockup is an eclectic system. You know what one of my greatest compliments was? Bruce Lee had 4 disciples. He had Danny Inosanto,
yep.
He had Teddy Wong, Richie Bastillo, and I forgot the other gentleman. Well, years ago, I was inducted into what's called a Martial Art Hall of Fame for this police program. So now we're doing a demonstration. So all of a sudden he comes up, and this is Richie Bastillo. He goes, "What time do you go on?" I go on at 1:00. He goes, "I go on at 3. I'll come watch." So now everybody's in the stands. He comes up, takes a chair, brings it right up to the mat, sits there and does this. So I said to the guys, guys, I can't hold back. We got Richard Bastillo walking. So bam, we're going at it. Oh, way to go, KD. That's a good one. And afterwards, he goes, first of all, he goes, I teach a lot of police and nobody does this kind of stuff. I said, it's really much decisive force orientated. I said, you can't teach a cop-free sparring type of technology within a freaking 1 week, once a year. So he goes, what you're doing is Jeet Kune Do. And he could tell by my intellectual expression. He goes, no, what you're doing is like what Bruce did. He goes, get rid of all that stuff that does not work.
Doesn't work.
And we use what does. So I can tell you the origin of this is a Japanese jiu-jitsu movement. That's one here. This one here, that comes from here. But it's got to be almost analyzed by today's psychomotor skill development in possible foreseeable outcome. So lockup is more of a decisive force. Decisive, not a countermeasure. See, if you're on the ground, that's a bad situation.
Yeah.
See, when you do a takedown, the anatomy of a takedown is designed, bang, for immediate control. BJJ guys, they take them down to fight on the ground.
And they stay there.
Yes. And like you said, I was at one not too long ago. Katie, we're doing SWAT training. Would you come check us out? Love to. Get there. Tell me when you can start your training. Yes, we are. No, you're not. Yes, we are. No. I said, I've been on this job a long time. I've never seen a SWAT officer or a street officer fighting on the side of the road wearing a Under Armour t-shirt and shorts. You told me this is SWAT. You don't wear a full kit? Oh, yes, we do. You don't carry an M4? Oh, yes, we do. You don't wear a helmet? Yes, you do. You cannot perform one of those maneuvers in full kit.
So and Kevin, that's where I go with my conversation that I said too. So I'm Gracie combative certified person. We teach it at our department. It's a great piece, right?
Yeah.
I teach in my business Krav Maga. That's my self-defense piece. Specifically, it's Commando Krav Maga. Not all Krav Magas are the same at all, by the way. Some are, our Krav is not punching and kicking oriented. It's very self-defense oriented. We're about 50% of what we do is against gun and knife, standing in or on the ground, or even in a chair, in a car, and you name it, right? So it's about getting up off the ground. It's not about staying on the ground, right? Yeah. And I know your system too, right, is not just teaching on the ground arm locks and things of that nature. You already kind of mentioned it, but for those that don't know, please go over your courses. You listed multiple of them already, but everyone doesn't necessarily know that you have a OC course and et cetera, right? Baton course. So go for it.
Well, one thing I realized after the FBI Quantico incident, I immersed myself. It is almost understanding the science of rapid skill acquisition pertaining to realize then we have not changed anything in 45 freaking years when it comes to police training. Anybody want to know why we train 4 or 8 hours a year? I said, it started 45 years ago. When you come in, you have to pay them contractually a 4 or 8 hour. It stayed the same ever since. And there's not a research paper in the world that says, oh, once a year for 4 hours, bam, we'll be able to take that guy on ever. And we still haven't changed the model at all.
Yet a lot of departments, and depends where you work still, right? We don't shoot enough.
The same thing.
The FBI shot 4 times a year, but at least we shot 4 times a year for the day. My point with this, Kevin, is that most departments are spending more time shooting because it's a higher risk liability, they believe, right?
Yeah.
God forbid we have a shooting, right? Mm-hmm. Versus every day, though, when I go on shift and I have to put someone in handcuffs, I'm touching them. It can go bad.
Everyone.
So timing wise, right? We spend in our career having to touch people, put them in handcuffs versus shooting somebody. And we spend way less time in that defensive tactics world.
Dan, it comes back to like typical needs assessment throughout the state, throughout this country. And people say, well, we're going to do a needs assessment. I said, well, let me tell you how to do a needs assessment. And first of all, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to do a survey, and then the survey is going to be opinion-based. Well, we think, we should be doing this. So all the fights go to the ground. So it's not. You need to look at actual engagements, what's going on. Now, we could go back as far as like Mr. Garner's case in New York City. Now, Mr. Garner was a very big, strong man. Mr. Garner was over 400 pounds, and Mr. Garner had serious heart issues. In the last line of the autopsy will say extensive physical exertion with police. Mm-hmm. And the multiple officer subject control is something that many of us have been involved in. So if say we do a yearly or quarterly assessment, hey guys, do you realize that on 62% of the times we had 2 officers taking this guy? Yeah. So this training iteration should be 2, 3, 4 officer subject control.
So I mentioned this too, and I gotta jump in here for a second, right? So I was part of the FBI director's team for a long time doing law enforcement partnerships. I worked for 2 attorney generals doing the same as law enforcement liaison as their principal for that. And one of the things we were doing is working with law enforcement associations, ICP, major city chiefs, major county sheriffs, national sheriffs, et cetera, others, with regards to looking at developing a use of force database.
Right.
Administration changed and it went out the window, right? Yep. But the bottom line is if people were serious enough about it, the FBI and DOJ was willing to spend the money to put a database together. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of departments out there that keep track of their own data, but then what we're looking at as what is a use of force may be different in one state or one department or one agency compared to the next. So there's no standard, right? There's not necessarily a standard. We talked about it too. Look at the Washington Post. They come out with stuff all the time with regard to law enforcement issues, right? But if there was a large enough want, it exists to be there. So the bottom line is, if you're an agency, you kind of got to do it yourself and keep your own data.
And it's not difficult. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I can. I wrote an article recently for Police One magazine, mm-hmm. And when you go back to your agency, say, Chief, what is your thoughts on training? A, expenditure, or B, investment? Which one is it?
Yeah.
If they say expenditure or a cost, that's that. If they said no, it's an investment, then I would say, okay, what's your return of investment then? You spent about how much thousands of dollars on this training? How's it working out for you? What? I said, this is like, for example, the courses, one of the top courses I teach is leadership, use of force, decision-making, and analysis. And it's really designed, like tomorrow or Monday, I'll fly to Mississippi to teach at the Mississippi Chiefs of Police Conference.
So that course, right, has got to be then for the chief, deputy chief, sheriff, under sheriff, majors, like higher executive management, then for them to understand some of this conversation we're just having, right?
Exactly. All the way down. See, if you write use of force analysis, the leaders will say, well, it's not for us. So if I write for commanders, then the frontline won't, that's not for us. I'm like, yes, it is, because you have to learn to analyze decision making the same way the officer makes it. You can't think of a different. I would have. That has nothing to do with use of force. They should have. Nothing to do with use of force analysis. So now, in a lot of it, I teach how to develop your own mechanism. Now, I go to one department. Okay, guys, aiming guns and weapons at 50% of your use of force. Yeah, but that's bullshit. I said, don't worry about that. I said, I'll tell you why. Because what it is showing, that number one, you perceive a possible deadly force and you are de-escalating downwards. I said, start to show what it is. They're going to say you're aiming guns and tasers at everybody based on the perception, but the officer
there is an agency out there I know, right, that actually has to write a use. There's more than one, but one in particular is really coming to my mind, right? And there's some chiefs that back this. If you pull your gun from the holster, it's considered use of force. If you pull it.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just sorry, right? So whether it's a late night traffic stop, I'm on the side of the road, I take my gun out of my holster, I see everything's cool, I put it back. You never even know in the car that I even have my gun out.
That's right.
You never even know, right? So, and there were other situations where you're doing a room clearing, a house clearing, right? Your gun is out. So because I'm going to an alarm call, an open door, or whatever, that's what we do. We pull our guns out. We search the home, right? We clear the house, we clear a building, whatever. I mean, our guns are out. So, then all these people have to write use of force reports. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's like the crazy example I can kind of come up with. So,
well, I that's a good example because that's why I like doing executive law enforcement. Last month I was the IACP. I did a speaking engagement for the IACP Legal Officers Conference because awesome. That's all they're making all assessments based on legal principles, concepts, case law. I said, but you need to understand there's human performance factors in all of these. And we talked about the different levels of force. Non-contact is when I'm aiming a weapon system at you. I said, when you put in these ridiculous, extensive policies, all you're doing is, number one, enhancing your litigation. So you are training your office. So you use deadly force on my client. Well, no, I didn't. Yes, it does. You use deadly force, right? You took your gun out? Well, no, I took my gun out. So you have a use of force report. So you must have aimed it. Well, no, it's found. I didn't aim at somebody. But you used your gun. And now what you could do with cops, because they won't now do the form, they'll keep that gun holstered and just putting them in jeopardy.
Yeah. And then it puts them in jeopardy, 100%, right? So yeah, and it could escalate, it could de-escalate, right? And so all I know, I'm on a call about a week and a half ago. God, let me live along with that.
Yeah.
Guys coming to the door with a stick in his hand, pipe.
Yeah.
My gun's out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he decides to put the pipe down and turn around and we handcuff him. Awesome, right? But you got to do what you got to do for the job too, and you can't prevent people from second guessing themselves by the policies that we have. But Kevin, real quick again, though, I want to make sure we're clear. So you mentioned the one executive course you have. I know go through some of the courses just so people know what you're teaching out here.
Well, the lockup arrest control is the basic program, and it's again, most of it it's you have to have striking law enforcement. You have to have takedowns in law enforcement. You have to have ground control in law enforcement. But it's more decisive force orientated. Decisive force, guys, means almost you are taking the initiative. Countermeasures, it almost exasperates the level of difficulty for officers. Research from 2008 to 2021. The faster decisive force is used on an individual, statistically less injuries to officers and or subjects. Yeah. Now, so then I teach.
We do that too. Look, when it's time to make an arrest, it's time to make the arrest. If someone comes back that they're wanted, I don't wait for the hit to come back. You're instantly in handcuffs.
And it's there. So many of the systems that I see, and I never say anything negatory about a system. The only thing I'll say, I have a lot of doubts. Could you show me any data of the level of proficiency when they've done that? And so the lockup program, arrested one. The other one's the triple, because you realize that most of our use of force is designed by the manufacturers. So Taser would design that. They're not going to incorporate hand-to-hand stuff or handcuffs. Well, they're not going to incorporate the baton, so it's fully integrated and interleaved with each other. So you have, handcuffing, OC, and baton all in a 5-day program that's interleaved on a constantly basis.
And this is awesome because this is what I believe is lacking. I said I was going to come to this and at some point, right? You're right. There's no one thing that's the best. because even your program probably doesn't have CIT. CIT meaning, right, crisis intervention training, where you're talking people down. Maybe some of it is, but
we'll get to that.
There's like 5-day courses. So look, I believe there should be some that type of training, right? There should be some jujitsu training. There should be how to take a gun away, how to take a knife away, how to take people down, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be like your system is, as eclectic as possible. It needs to be as holistic as possible. I will even go there then too, right? Even to the point where at one point then you even do simunition training.
Oh yeah.
And my issue with simunition training that I see firsthand sometimes is that we don't have enough shoot no shoot scenarios.
Yeah.
Because of lack of training time. 90% of the, maybe it's not 90, but a majority of the scenarios are shoot. When in real life, it's not, right? So we should be using, not, simulation training is awesome, but some scenarios should have where we go hands-on.
Yeah.
Some scenarios we have where we talk them down, right? So there needs to be a variety of the scenarios that we're not always shooting. We're not always going hand to hand. Sometimes we're talking them down, right? There needs to be enough of that variation because that's the truth. That's the reality of the job.
That's right. Now, one thing, Dennis, we do have in 2006, I developed a program called LEADS, Law Enforcement Active De-Escalation Strategies, way before this thing became in vogue. Mm-hmm. So that's the two primary courses I teach. It's like last week was in Missouri teaching law enforcement active de-escalation strategies it's an instructor program. Now, both of those in 2023, I get a notification from the FBI National Academy Associates. Your training has been nominated for the Science and Innovation Award. I said, is that like going to Switzerland and winning the lotto and never going to Switzerland? He goes, no, you've had a lot of people put in for it. Mm-hmm. So what they said is that the people that put in for it say you quantify your training on a regular basis. I said, let me say something. Training is not to be measured by the speed of acquisition. Oh, you learned that fast. Training is not to be measured by the level of performance you reach. Check off, check off, check off. Training is to be measured out there in the real world environment. Mm-hmm. Now, presently, so we got an award because they said we are the only defensive tactics program and de-escalation that has quantifiably measured success in the field. Then I got a call from Leon County Sheriff's Office. They said, we are looking to do evidence-based training and de-escalation. IACP called me a couple of years before that too. And they said, we are partner up with the University of North Florida. Because just what you said, Dan, I mean, we have to it's got to be interleaved with each other. So they said, would you come out and train our officers in leads? And then we're going to, I said, I'll do it on one occasion. Number one, I will not come out and teach them 1 8-hour block. And then the next group, 8-hour block. Because the retainability of a one-day lecture in a classroom might be, 10%? I said, so when they go out and they don't do the de-escalation tactics or whatever in the field, you're not going to say, well, we did it in this format, which is only a 10% retainability. No, you're going to say lead sucks. I can't afford it. Well, what do you want? I said, if you want me to do it, number one, it's called interleaving. It's short, smaller blocks of training iterations, dedicated, focused, and spaced out, not block. So I said, one group, I'll take Monday morning from 8 to noon. Then I don't want to see them all day Tuesday. I want to see them Wednesday afternoon. So now their brain sees it again. It's a return of the pathway. Then I don't want to see them on Thursday. Then I want to see them again Friday afternoon. Now, naturally, that's just still a rushed version. I said, but everything in the science of rapid skill acquisition is not block. I said, so now, and I want the researchers in the same classroom so they can understand and measure effectively. And they are having extreme success out of it.
So I kind of do that too. I call them intensives. Instead of private lessons, I call them intensives. So a private lesson might be an hour or 30 minutes for someone that's a student, right? But I don't do that. You get hours worth of instruction, to me 4 or 5, and then you come back and repeat 4 or 5, but I don't see you the next day either. Then we'll practice what we did before. And even in that 4 or 5 hour session, we'll do a technique. You'll drill the technique. You'll learn a second one. And when it comes time to practice again, you do the first one and the second one.
Yes.
Right? So you're layering these things. Then you can get to the point where you do surprise attacks or refresher tests, all of them. Everything we've done, so we're about ready to break for lunch. Cool. We've done whatever 8 techniques already, you're going to practice all of them with different people attacking you and whatever else, right? Or what you want to do. I call them intensive. So hey, so very like-minded with regard to how we train for retention.
And we don't in our profession.
Yeah.
And now that, so you got the needs assessment and the training iteration, still 4 hours, none of that is going to work. And so we got rid of this training. I said, well, first of all, it might not be the training. I don't care what it might be too complex. I get it. It might not be specific. I said, but again, you got to look at the transfer. What is most important? The transfer of skill, the retainability, or the retrieval? Oh, the retrieval. No, the transfer. Because if the transfer is done substandardly, the brain is not going to retrieve it, therefore never retrieve it. I mean, not going to retain it or ever retrieve it over long periods of time. It'll never establish, long-term potentiation.
Yeah, so I'm a believer, right? I mean, my craft is 2-3 gross motor skills, right? This is where it goes against some jiu-jitsu techniques, right? So we're looking at gross motor. If you talk to your Vietnam vet friend, right, you're talking what they learned way back then to today, right? 2-3 gross motor skills because of the freeze, fight, flight, sweating, stress that we're under, right? You need to simplify it as much as possible, and then also it still needs work, right? So you have to be able to bring it back as well. So hey, Kevin, very like-minded. Again, how you're teaching, like some others that I've had on. I've been trying to stress specifically for 2025, bringing on law enforcement subject matter experts like yourself to. It's my clients, right? My audience is not just law enforcement. But I wanted to highlight many of our podcasts, at least in 2025, to that audience, right? And I'll throw this out there too, right? Even though your program is for law enforcement, in general, right, people have, I don't care whether you're a civilian or whether you're police, right? If you get in a violent confrontation, you're in a violent confrontation. And so if you carry a gun and you're not a cop, and I just happen to carry a gun because I want to carry a gun in Virginia or West Virginia or wherever we live, right? Too, you have the issues of having to present it, right? And so that's at least for shooting. So, and I'll say the same thing for martial arts. So, you may be arrested, right? You in whether it's a self-defense issue or not, right? So there may be, you can carry OC in places. So there's some compatibility. They can't carry tasers around civilians necessarily, right? But there is some similarities even for the civilian world with what we do, even as a cop. So, hey, Kevin, we're about out of time. How would someone reach out to you as far as website and getting a hold of you, whether that's any social media you want to provide or
it's lockuppolicetraining.com. But can I leave with a tip?
Yeah.
2 tips that we talked about that I think is going to beneficial all of you. Number one, the de-escalation aspect of it, guys. Every single use of force that you come into, they are going to accuse you of not de-escalating, accuse you of not mitigating, accuse you of almost like initiating state-induced jeopardy. So go back to the PD, all right, and say, hey, boss, is there any way we can do this? Can we create a CAT entry, conflict resolved, no use of force, and no criminal arrest? Oh, sure. Because how many times are you at a Motel 6? Folks, what's going on? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to 102. They're going to stop, you stop. Okay, everybody thanks. How many times does that occur? 17, give me a 10-8. That's conflict resolved, no use of force, no criminal arrest. Because when it comes to litigation, officer, why didn't you de-escalate the situation? Well, the subject was an imminent threat. Oh, an imminent threat. Have you ever de-escalated anything?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have, right?
You don't keep track.
And you got nothing. Mm-hmm. So, and we know that you do it on a regular basis, but jury, the trier fact are given illusions. So get that. Therefore, you can say, I have de-escalated. I respond to conflicts and resolved situations on 38 occasions within the last 4 months. Show it. The other thing is use of force. Don't just create a physical system. Physical. That's too generic. If you do a takedown, drop-off box, I did this rear sentry, I did arm wrap, I did a one leg, boom. Therefore, if you all of a sudden have to take somebody down, but now they inadvertently split their head open, officer, you're the one who caused this injury to my suspect. Well, that was an unintentional consequence from a very well-intended action. Oh, really? How many times you used force within the last 2 years? You want to be able to do this. I've responded to resistance and aggression on 7 occasions within the last 4 years. Within those 7 responses, I deployed 3 rear center takedowns, 2 arm wrap takedowns, 1 Ole Rezo capsicum, and 1 taser response. Out of the 7, out of the 8, there was no injuries. 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, that's what I want to leave you with, because we're doing good stuff out there, but if you can't quantify it.
And those are great, more so than anything, not that everyone shouldn't know that, right? But those are the conversations that you're having with those chiefs and sheriffs, the executives too, because they need to be the ones to be enacting that within the agency.
It's got to start there. You're right, Dan.
I'm not going to take a piece of paper and just keep track of my stuff myself, right? It's the chance of that happening is slim to none, and we shouldn't be asking our deputies and our officers to even do that, right? So,
well, you know what? Then I would even say, listen, if you have a sniper, God forbid he needs to take somebody, he's got to produce a cold bore training shot. That means he's got to show on his own log how many times he's taken that shot. What are the weather conditions? What are the distance? So even I said, don't expect the agency to develop enough basis for you. So I think how many times you use force is still only 4%, 3%. So I would even start to recommend that, so you have at least some type of documentation.
Yeah.
They got to see the value, because now if, oh shit, I want to show, I do this on a regular basis.
Awesome. All right, everybody. I want to thank Kevin for being here today. Great conversation. Extremely passionate about what he does, right? Continue to do in retirement, teaching everybody, right? It doesn't matter whether you're new out of the academy or you're a police executive, anywhere in between. Great programs, highly recommended. I have had friends that have taken his courses and love them. So reach out to Kevin. I don't care whether you're that executive or you're looking to get training, bring it to your department, bring it to your state, etc. So get to the website. Everyone, you know the drill, right? Train hard, train smart, train safe, train real. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.